Hey Angels and Biscuits, CSDL here, and today's video is going to be a book review. So I haven't posted a ton of videos lately. Part of that is because we got a new puppy, and while that is very exciting, she is quite the little handful and has kept me quite busy. I don't even have a ton of time to read these days, but I did manage to finish a book. If you're curious about my puppy, Renfri, I have a YouTube channel just for her, so there's dedicated just puppy content there, and I will link that like up there and in the description. So if you want to go check out some puppy content, it is there, and feel free to peruse and enjoy. So for today's video, the book that I'm going to talk about, and yes, I will talk about spoilers because it's Jurassic Park. We kind of all know the basic premise of Jurassic Park, I'm sure, but I will be doing this with spoilers. But the book is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, I think. Sorry if that's wrong. But Jurassic Park, dinosaurs. Who does not love dinosaurs? I really love my dinosaurs. The T-Rex and the Velociraptor are like my top two dinosaurs. The pterodactyl, though, he's a pretty good contender. He might be second place, though, but like, I love him too. So I love the movie. I love the Jurassic Park movies. I don't know that there's a Jurassic Park movie that I don't love. The newer ones are not quite my favorite thing, but I enjoy them. I still like them. And the first Jurassic Park, the original, is probably one of my favorite movies, and it still holds up. Like, if you watch it today, it was made, I think, back in the 90s, right? Like, it still holds up today. Most of it's I think the visual effects that they do. They use practical effects, not like CGI and stuff. Anyway, that's a movie rant, movie tangent for another time. But I love the original Jurassic Park, which is based on this book. And I had never read the book. I didn't even know there was a book for the longest time. So for spooky season, I wanted to read this, and unfortunately I didn't finish it during spooky season. I started it in October, finished this, beginning of December, but it is finished and I absolutely loved it. So the movie didn't do a terrible job adapting this book, in all honesty. Like, it's probably one of the better adaptations I've seen as far as book to film adaptations go. So with the movie familiarity, I went in kind of knowing the premise. Obviously, the premise is at its core a survival story. This is a very good introduction, I think, to sci-fi. If anyone wants like beginner sci-fi, I think this is a good place to start. It feels a lot like a zombie apocalypse kind of vibe, right? Like, you're not trying to defeat a big bad enemy, you're just trying to survive. And in this case, you're trying to survive the dinosaurs that are roaming around free out of their pens and whatnot. So just a brief overview of what Jurassic Park is about is, a rich man puts all this money into creating a dinosaur theme park with genetically engineered dinosaurs. And anything that can go wrong will go wrong. That's like, I think, the most simple definition I can give for Jurassic Park. If you like survival stories, if you like zombie apocalypse things, or just apocalypse style stories, I mean, it's not quite apocalyptic because it's not the end of the world, but it is a survival story kind of like that. It's just humans versus, in this case, dinosaurs, where it's, like humans versus zombies. Like, there's no set antagonist. It's just about getting out alive. So if you're into that kind of thing, this would be a pretty good book. If you like sci-fi, it's a pretty good book. If you want to get into sci-fi, I think it's a great starter sci-fi. So what were my overall thoughts, opinions, impressions, whatever, of Jurassic Park? Essentially, I loved it. I was super into it. I probably love it just as much as I love the movie, and I really, really loved the movie. I thought the writing was done very well. I really liked the characters, even the characters that were clearly written to be unlikable and annoying. I still enjoyed reading those parts because of the survival aspect, right? Everyone is trying to survive. They're doing their best to survive with what they have, what they can do, you know, just they're surviving. And the plot, it starts off pretty slow, right? Normally I have trouble getting into books when it's very slow in the beginning, like the pacing is slow, the getting into the plot is slow. Like, we know there's dinosaurs, right? You as the reader know there's dinosaurs, but the people in the book do not know. So this theme park is on an island in Costa Rica, and it starts off with the dinosaurs having escaped. They're kind of peppered in throughout everyday life. Like, they're not a threat yet. They're teeny little dinosaurs, right? They're small. They're not a big T-Rex, but they don't know what it is. They think it's just a weird lizard, right? So we start off with a weird lizard, and it kind of builds up from there. Like, they got to figure out what this thing is, and that's kind of when we get the other characters involved, like the paleontologist and the paleobotanist. They were kind of involved with the building of the park, like consulted briefly, but otherwise they had really not a ton of business or involvement, I guess. But once we get into the weird lizard plot, the park has to undergo some like reviews and stuff, and it's got some investigations going on. So then we get the paleontologists involved, and we get people actually on the island with the park with the danger dinosaurs. And it is slow moving, but once things do get moving, once the big storm happens and the power goes out and the dinosaurs get to escape their pens, you know, it picks up very quickly, and then it's very high stakes, very intense, very suspenseful, all the way up till about the end of the book. And it even ends on a fairly good cliffhanger, like setting itself up for another book. I don't know if there's more books. I think there's one other Jurassic Park novel for sure, but it definitely sets itself up for Ian Malcolm to be correct. Ian Malcolm is one of the doctors that is along for the ride. He was one of the biggest naysayers of the park. He is, in the film, you would know him as played by Jeff Goldblum, who is probably my favorite character in both the film and the book. He is the biggest naysayer, and he was absolutely correct. And the ending, it kind of just circles back to his initial point of life will find a way. Like, so they end the book after all this dramatic dinosaur surviving. Like, they survive. They well, not all of them survive, but they get to the we get to the end of the book, and the people that will survive are alive. So what ends up happening is, once everything is back kind of under control, the Costa Rican government shows up, and they decide that this danger island is too dangerous and it needs to go away. So they bomb the place, right? They just get rid of it. But what Ian Malcolm has been saying since the start of the book is that life will find a way. So his entire point was, you can't do this and control it. Like, you've done this really big thing. You've genetically engineered and brought back these animals, these creatures, dinosaurs that they don't exist anymore. Not the way that they were back then. Like, dinosaurs have relatives now. Like, I think it's birds are their closest living relative, but we do not have dinosaurs. We have reptiles, we have amphibians, we have birds, but we don't have dinosaurs. And his entire point through this whole thing is, you can't control it, right? Like, it's going to blow up in your face. Everything will go wrong, and you know what? You've tried to keep them from reproducing, you've tried to keep them contained, but you know what? Life will find a way, and it will defy everything you've done. And he was absolutely right. Because at the end of the book, we get this really fun reveal that there have been migrating some things. They don't know what. The Costa Rican government doesn't know what. But something has been migrating the direction that the velociraptors like to stare off into the distance at, and eating stuff. you know, like I think cattle and stuff in fields, stuff high in lysine, which was something that they tried to remove from the dinosaurs as a genetic failsafe, which clearly isn't working because they are adapting, they are finding a way. I think it's just really good plot. It was a good story. And like I said, like once it got going, the intense parts were really intense. Like all of the dinosaur attacks were really intense. The T-Rex, I loved what they did with the T-Rex. He was a little bit smarter, I think, than he was in the movie. Well, he was pretty smart, I think, in the movie too. I don't know, but I love the T-Rex, and I love that he made like each of the dinosaurs pretty distinct, pretty unique. The T-Rex was a little bit more reptilian, right? Like he could swim like a crocodile, where the Velociraptors had a little bit more avian qualities to them. Like they kind of stared off in this one direction. They lined up a certain way, kind of like birds do when they're gonna migrate or something. It was a bird-like behavior. Plot was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed the plot. Even with the kind of slow pacing at the beginning, it works. It's, I think, one of the few times I can say the slow pacing does not hurt the novel. And the characters I really enjoyed as well. Like I said, Ian Malcolm was my favorite, the big naysayer, and I'm kind of with him on that. While I love dinosaurs, I think it is like the worst idea to try to bring them back. Like, just listen to the book. Like, let's not do that. This is why we don't do that. I am 100% with Ian Malcolm and his chaos theory that he had going on, and his everything that can go wrong is gonna go wrong. This is a bad idea. It's not gonna work. He was right. Dr. Grant, who was the paleontologist, really loved him. He was kind of the grumpy guy. He was the grumpy character, gruff. But then when he would observe the dinosaurs or talk about the dinosaurs, he would get very excited and a little bit more emotive, and you could just see his passion when he was talking about the dinosaurs and observing them, and I loved that. And Ellie, the paleobotanist, she was more high energy. Like, she complemented Dr. Grant's character pretty well. And then we have the children of the rich guy, John Hammond. He was the owner of the park, the one who has done all this. John Hammond brought his grandkids to the island, and they were really fun. The younger child, the girl, she was a little bit annoying, but you know, she is a smaller child, and it was shown, it was expressed, you know, when children are put in that kind of stressful situation. I think it was written very well. And the older child, Tim, he was, I thought, written very well. He was pretty smart for a kid, but he wasn't too smart. Like, I take issue when kids are always smarter than the adults in books. And while Tim is smart, and he was smarter with like the computers than say Dr. Grant, but he wasn't overall smarter, right? Like, kids being better with tech is pretty normal, so that was fine. And he was pretty knowledgeable out when they were trapped out in the like dinosaur pens, surviving. He could help take care of his younger sister and kind of keep up with Dr. Grant, and I thought it was very well done. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the plot. This might go on my favorites of 2022 list because I really had a good time. I had a good time reading Jurassic Park. And even though the ending kind of hurts me because they kill off Malcolm, and I loved Malcolm, he's my favorite, it's very well done. And I'm not someone who reads a ton of sci-fi. I read some, like Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern series, I think is considered sci-fi because there are genetically engineered dragons, but for a lot of the books you don't know that, so it feels more fantasy, but it is kind of sci-fi. And that's one series I really enjoy that is sci-fi, not fantasy. It's just usually not my go-to genre, but I think this book does a pretty good job with balancing the science-y stuff with the action-y stuff. You know, you can follow along with the science, you're not super confused. You don't feel like you're being talked over to. it's done, I think, in a very good way. Like, you're not lost. I was not lost, which I don't want to be lost in my sci-fi. Generally, I want to be able to understand what's going on. I don't want to feel like, I don't know, that I don't understand it, because then you're not really enjoying it if you feel like you're lost the entire time, right? And I didn't feel lost. And I really think, though, jumping back to the characters for a minute, you know, if we're going to pick an antagonist, which there isn't really any main antagonist, because at its core you're just trying to not get eaten by a dinosaur. But John Hammond, the proprietor, the creator, the guy behind the park, he's kind of an antagonist because he's just so persistent that nothing will go wrong with his park, that it is fine, that any problem, it's just a small thing, it's small, it's no big deal, it's fine, we could fix it. Like, that is John Hammond through like the entirety of the book, and he's a little bit rude and a little too defensive of his park. Like, it does make him kind of an antagonist to me. Like, he's not what they are afraid of, but he is the one pushing to keep everything open, right? That is what he is doing. Though he does not make it either at the end. He gets his kind of comeuppance, I guess, for this whole thing, and he is tricked by a fake Tyrannosaurus Rex roar, and then he falls down a hill and hurts his ankle, and then when he's trying to get up the hill later on, he gets attacked by those, like, the tiny little, well, maybe they're not like that, but you know, they're tiny, they're small, and they're the ones that like spit the poison at you, and then the poison paralyzes you, and then they eat you. So he got that's how he got his comeuppance. Wasn't a T-Rex, wasn't a Velociraptor, it was the tiny ones that poison you. Yeah, like I said, I really loved, like, once we got into the intense survival part of the book, it was great. Like, the T-Rex followed Dr. Grant and the kids, like, throughout the park, throughout the different dinosaur pens. Like, he was tracking them, he was stalking them, he was bound and determined to get them. He did not win in the end, poor Tyrannosaur, but what you gonna do? And the Velociraptors, I loved their scenes too, because they really play up the intelligence, the pack dynamics, and the plotting. Like, they were shown to plan out an attack. Like, they weren't just, like the Tyrannosaur just comes at you and eats you or tosses you around, does whatever a Tyrannosaur does. But the Velociraptors take their time, they make plans, you know, they're highly intelligent. It's a whole different ballpark, right? Like, you have an intelligent creature hunting you down, basically. So it's like different, it's different stakes for each dinosaur that they're trying to avoid and survive against. And it's all done just very well. I had a great time. And I would definitely recommend Jurassic Park to anyone who's looking to just get into fantasy, sci-fi. I would recommend Jurassic Park to anyone who wants to start out in some sci-fi. Or if you really loved the movie, if you loved the first Jurassic Park and you're like, it was so good, I love my dinosaurs, read the dinosaur book, because the dinosaur book's also really good. And there's a lot of cool dinosaur moments, and you get so much of, like, if you love the T-Rex and the Velociraptors, like, so much good stuff with the T-Rex and the Velociraptors. And I loved it a lot, and the characters were done so well. Even though I wanted to slap a few of them a few times, that's normal. I tend to want to slap characters in books all the time. They were done very well. I think Michael Crichton, I think that's how you say his name. I think he is a phenomenal writer, at least based off this book. I really think he knows what he's doing. I really don't think you can go wrong here. I would probably give it like 7.5 or 8 biscuits out of 10. It was good. I had a good time. I would recommend it all over the place. Like, I probably will be recommending this to all kinds of people, because I know sci-fi lovers and I know dinosaur lovers. So I'm like, hey, I got a book for you to try. But that is all I had for you guys today. If you've read Jurassic Park, let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments. But that is all I have for now, and I will see you guys next time.